will be a panel discussion. I'll be moderating it. May I invite the panelists to be on the stage with us. So we have Romeo Bardini with us. He is the Deputy Director of Country Engagements NDC Partnership. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Bilal Ahmed, he is the CEO of NDRMF. Mr. Hamad Nati as the DG Deputy of Pakistan. We have with us Chizoba Inziaku. I think that pronounced her. She is the founder of the Global Advisory Policy Thinker. And we have with us Ashir Samad Khan for the NAP NOCC. So please, if you could join us. Good chair. I think his chair in the center is that.
This is what?
You get the center stage.
चले क्या बात मिनिस्ट्री
Before we formally start the panel discussion, I would like to request Mr. Asif Radishar, the Secretary of the Ministry of Climate Change, to please give us the opening remarks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that, and thank you, distinguished guests here. And I'm happy to be here. Pakistan announced its NDCs in 2021. Though ambitious, but we are committed to meeting all our NDC targets. But for a country like Pakistan, adaptation is equally important, and that has not been our core agenda point in the last COP and this COP as well. Pakistan's reliance on water resource, agriculture sector, more than half the population is dependent on agriculture and livestock for their livelihood. So while we are committed to our NDCs, adaptation action is equally important for us. And one more thing that we highlighted during pre-COP as well, in a country with population base of 250 million souls to support, we need to grow economically as well. Growth has an environmental cost, and we are willing to take steps where we decarbonize and grow at the same time, but then we would be looking at the world outside Pakistan for support. Countries need to grow, countries have to support their population, but at the same time decarbonize as well. So there has to be a very subtle and explicit link between the NDC goals and the National Adaptation Plan. Pakistan announced its NDC, the National Adaptation Plan this year. It is published, and the challenging task is how to now implement it. And we have seen there's a huge financial gap. Reports talk of something around $348 billion by 2030 to meet adaptation and mitigation targets. So this is the challenge which we jointly will try and address. So I'll stop here, and I'll once again thank our eminent panelists and request them to carry on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. You set the stage for us and given the country context as well, which is important. And our primary focus will be discussing NAP and NDC linkages in context of the country. But we have an international person who will give us the perspective and a regional perspective from another region as well, from a different continent for that matter. So just trying to connect and see the international best practices and how can Pakistan improve their overall thing. I'd like to start with Romeo. So I'll go to Romeo. He's the Deputy Director, Country Operations and Engagement. So Romeo, if you could introduce NDCP and what you're doing and give us a national perspective and connecting it to the international experiences you'll be having, because you deal with all the parties for that matter. So if you could give us perspective from the NDCP's point of view, and then move on. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I don't know, can you hear me or
No, you have to be a little louder.
So again?
You'll have to be a little louder.
Okay. So I need to shout.
I think you can put that closer to you, rather.
So this is let me give you
Still it doesn't work?
No, but it's fine. It's only for recording, so it's not amplifying, I understand. But maybe.
Alright, so we have the mic. We don't want to shout. We don't want anybody to shout at you. There you go now. Thank you.
My voice is not probably loud enough for this room, but anyhow, thank you very much for, first of all, for inviting me. I had the pleasure to work with Pakistan basically from day one of the NDC partnership conceptions back in 2016. The NDC partnership was basically a child of the Paris Agreement, not a formal decision, but really a hands-on kind of coalition of now more than 220 countries and implementing agencies, international organizations, civil society organizations of global scale, such as the WWF. And the idea back then in Paris was, okay, we see that this Paris Agreement is coming to life. We've been seeing a lot of the COP being part of, packed in a silo, working around the negotiators and so forth. But the contact and the kind of the interface to reality on the ground in many countries is not necessarily given. And there's also a disconnect between the actual national effort that are already there in terms of energy production, renewables, adaptations and forestry, and what these guys there are talking in their COPs every year. And I think that really changed. We see this COP with 60,000 people now talking all across kind of sectors. We have ministers of finance here, we have ministers of energy here, and so forth. And I think what we've been doing as a partnership and together with our members and through our members was in Pakistan is a very good example there, to bring this national perspective there and the variety of national perspectives. And we talk about the government, which in many respects here in the COP in the past was the ministry focal point, NDA for climate change, which of course is very important, but as you know, with your Ministry of Planning, with your Ministry of Energy, with the Ministry of Agriculture and so forth in Pakistan, like my own country, Germany, a federal system which has a very important vertical dimension, also with the regions and the departments and the federal states and your provinces being in charge of a lot of the topics that are centered around the NDCs and climate action is also something that we've been bringing in. And we see the local climate action summit here also coming up, and I think and I hope that also your representatives from the regions and from the cities that are so vulnerable on one hand, but also have such a great potential to leverage mitigation action are of course represented there. So what the NDC partnership has been doing, and it is the MOCC from the very beginning also shaping it with us, was to make sure that countries get ownership, get capacity, and are supported. And countries in that example was the Ministry of Climate Change in Pakistan, but also Ministry of Planning, to make sure that you are bringing your needs, you're bundling your needs, and you're also shaping your NDC and breaking it down to investment plans and tangible kind of project pipeline that can then be taken up by the international community, and not in a way that it is fragmented and proliferated, but also in a way that it's coordinated a little bit better, because we all know that the World Banks, Asian Development Banks, UNDPs, and so forth, they're running around sometimes like headless chicken. And if you are, and I'm coming from the German government, I know it exactly with GIZ and KfW and so forth. We have a lot of those stories where there's duplication and things like that. But this endeavor that we are having, and we just discussed with the World Bank about how can we create more country momentum, how can we be more programmatic, less project driven, and this is basically what we are trying to do. Whether it's an app or whether it's an adaptation program or a mitigation program, doesn't really matter in that respect, as long as the ownership of the country is there and the response to the collective one. Whereas, of course, with the adaptation one, it's much more complex, it's much more challenging, of course, because the finance is not like so obvious. Sometimes the business case is not so obvious, and at the end of the day, when you deal with the poorest of the poor and the rural areas, as well, it's a challenge to sometimes have this leverage on the national level. But with the mitigation, of course, then there's a bit of a different story. You have a very cheap renewables now. I remember talking about the hydropower potential of Pakistan for baseload solutions and so forth. Huge amount of potential there, and of course also business case. So working this out is something. But I'm in favor of closing my remarks here from a global perspective. I think we have 80 or 90, 85% of all NDCs have an adaptation aspect, and drilling it down and making it more kind of tangible and more kind of towards investments through a national adaptation plan is quite important. As long as these two planning instruments are aligned, not only with each other, but also with the national development planning and the influence that you have on the sub-national level in Pakistan, particularly important. So this kind of approach is great, and I think when you look at your first INDC, when you look at your NDC, the path is incredible, and the increase in kind of quality and breadth of this instrument is really something you can be proud of. I think that yeah, as you said, that it's now to leverage the funding nationally and internationally to bridge the gap of the funding that is needed to make the NDC development.
Thank you, Romy, for that. Gosh, about 4 or 5 different important points. And taking the first one from there, I'd like to move towards Arshad Samad. And here, what do we have in the NAP, and how do we connect that with the overall NDCs? And since 80% or more is like adaptation, and then you mentioned some of the international organizations actually working with data stations. So let's say that we have what sort of a weightage do we have within the NAP? So if you could unpack the NAP a little bit for us, and so that we can take the discussion forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Basically, when we talk about NDCs or tags, it's basically the two sides of the same coin. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, as we all know, the contribution to greenhouse gas emission is less than 1%. But the impact of climate change is really devastating in the last couple of decades. And as the time is going by, the intensity and the frequency of these climate-induced incidents are increasing. So, as we all know, that Pakistan is one of the top 10 vulnerable countries in the world. And the 2022 floods were basically a wake-up call for all of us. So, keeping in view that, the Ministry of Climate Change felt the need for building the capacities and the resilience of the institution as well as communities as a priority. So that's why they expedited the process of preparation of National Adaptation Plan, which has been approved in August of this year by the Cabinet, and there are, I'm sure, few copies available. So if someone is interested to have a look, please feel free to grab a copy. So basically, in the NAP, which has already been approved, 6 areas of priorities have been identified. One is the nexus or the relationship between agriculture and water. The other one is the resilience, urban resilience. The third one is the natural capital, which includes air, water, and land. And the fourth one is the human capital, which basically is the focus is mainly on the health and education of the well-being of people. Then we have the cross-cutting priority areas such as disaster risk management, and I'm sure we'll show more light on that. And the other one is the youth, gender, as a social component, as a cross-cutting theme. So these are the 6 main areas of intervention. As far as the implementation is concerned, of course, it's a challenge, because the requirement of NEP, though we haven't done proper costing of the intervention. By the way, there are 118 interventions that have been identified in all these different areas which I have just informed. So the requirement is probably between 10 to 14 billion dollars for implementing the intervention of the NAP. So this is about the implementation now, how we are going to do it. Our approach is basically, we are moving towards at the local level, developing the provincial adaptation plan as well as the district adaptation plan. Because at the end of the day, it is the communities who are suffering from the catastrophes of the climate incidents. So unless and until we involve them and build their resilience toward these calamities, so it will be difficult to resolve these issues. So that's what we are moving on towards more at the local level.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for actually unpacking the NAP for us and identifying what's in it. I'd like to move to Chizoba and hear from her the African perspective for that matter, so that we can have different perspectives, and then we actually go to the discussion within the country context. Chizoba, over to you.
And this is why, I'm very happy that yes, this will be a lot of pledges, biggest pledges, $100 million, but we should also remember that in 2022, a lot of pledges was made. We should also remember that in 2026, a lot of pledges were made, but then how far have we gone? So I'm hoping that by the next global stocktake, we should see progress, like real progress on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we're good. The French neighbors are actually having a good time, so we'll have to speak a little. I'd like to move towards Bilal. So he has the African region as well perspective, and then you've been involved with the NDC process as well. My question is, what specific challenges and opportunities does Pakistan face in establishing the effective governance mechanism to ensure coherence and integration between NAP and NDCs? And now we've heard the overall NDCP and the African perspective and the unpacking of Pakistan. So if you can combine and give us the opportunities and challenges on that side. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Pavilion. Well, before I answer your question, I just want to highlight since we are the organizer and NDRMF is the organizer of this particular event. So just to indicate what did we have in our heads when we were putting together the things and the philosophy behind it. Because we know that NDC was already in place and by many means our NDC is very ambitious and it stands out among the many developing countries. NAP of course came a little bit afterwards, but nevertheless it very much complements the NDC. So basic idea behind was to allowing, well first of all kind of allowing ourselves an opportunity to look at the perspective and the linkages which are there, which might have not been fully explored or fully evaluated. So this is an opportunity where actually we want to give an opportunity and allow our experts to look into from that perspective. The second purpose was making use of this particular gathering of the global community and then making a very clear and bold statement that NAP or the adaptation kind of a discourse should not be taken in an isolated manner. It should be taken in a holistic manner and between the implemented NDCs as well as the adaptation, they are always there and this can be actually looked into it in many countries, as we see from African perspective as well, and I know for sure in many other countries as well. So if the global community wants to reduce emissions, they want to meet the 1.5 target, and if they are really serious about taking along the developing countries with them as well, they have to support these countries on adaptation. And support comes in basically three main mechanisms. One is capacity building, the other one is technical assistance, and the third one is financial assistance. A lot of discussion is happening in the negotiation rooms on all these things. And I was in a couple of sessions earlier on yesterday, and I've seen that those kind of these are being looked out, but not in a very explicit manner. So I think this is kind of a message, for a small gathering, but we all are very much part of this, the voices which are going to be resonating over the corridors of B1 and B2s, and I don't know where else negotiations are happening. So this is the purpose behind for today's session. Okay, now yes, we have NDC, and considerable amount of progress in Pakistan has been made. Now the NAP became effective, and this of course provides comprehensive framework, as our friends from the climate team have already mentioned, in terms of the adaptation measures, what are the critical sectors and thematic areas where the government of Pakistan is going to be focusing into those areas. Now, this is not going to happen automatically, of course. Even if we have the technical assistance, even if we have the financial assistance, let's say that one fine morning we have all the money available to us, and even though I don't think we're going to make any meaningful difference until and unless the governance structure and the coordinating mechanism is fully effective, and it is in that place. Now, your question is what kind of that mechanism of coordination in the governance structure which is needed. Now, in the climate change context, this is quite a interesting discussion which has evolved, especially on the climate governance. We know the classical definition of what governance is mean, and the climate debate have actually challenged that definition. It's not about having the systems and institutions and norms and the customs and the traditions. And suddenly over the period of time, they do actually come together, and then the system actually start evolving. And with the time, it does become mature, and it becomes effective, and it bears the results. Now, what we have seen in the climate change context, particularly whether it's mitigation or adaptation, it's education awareness, or you name it, any climate action arena, that has actually challenged the traditional governance structure. So what kind of structure is needed? I don't know really. Frankly, I really don't know. I'm researching myself. That's one of the area of my own research as well. But I think few things, couple of points I can make. This and then leave it for others, and I hope we can create some discussion, not only this event but in subsequent events as well. I'm carrying on this discussion up to in the post-COP scenario as well. So one particular element is that the financial systems what are needed, they of course cannot grow out of it, and they're never going to be sufficient whatever is available into the public money. And public money not exactly within the government budget, but what we are talking about internationally available public finances which are available. So what does it mean? It means that the private sector, the private capital has to be roped in. And that really needs, especially in countries like Pakistan, I know this for the countries in Africa as well, that basically needs, I don't want to say the paradigm shift, this has actually become kind of a cliche, overused word, but at least a kind of a different mode of thinking, which actually can bring the private capital in, and especially in the specific context of adaptation, the economic value has to be integrated as well. It has to be generated, it has to be created. Now, mitigation is an easy equation. There is a surplus, there is a product at the end of the tunnel, and that's why we're seeing the 80% of the international climate finance actually flowing into the mitigation area. It's not coming into the adaptation because the economic value is not there. It's not being seen. But then that is there. I know it for sure, being an economist myself, and sometimes I really wonder that how come we can ignore that? How we can ignore the agricultural practices which are going to be secure, which are going to be protected, safeguarded, and this is going to be ensuring this food security. And why we are not able to attach economic value to it? This is a one particular area. I have a couple of more points, but I want to take all. Don't want to take all the time space. So, but I think in the discussion we'll bring them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Bilal, for that. Ahmad, you're on the implementation side actually. So connecting from that, my question is, what are the priorities and targets for adaptation and mitigation, and our current implementation status for that on both sides?
Hello. Yeah, so let me take a 30-second and try to differentiate between NDCs and NAP. So NDCs, obviously, as part of the government commitments towards the Paris Agreement, covers both mitigation and adaptation. And then for adaptation, the product was long overdue, but I think everybody is happy that it came this year. Coming to NDCs, I think despite the fact that, as my fellow panelists mentioned, that if you look at our contribution is negligible. But still, the government of Pakistan committed to reduce 50% of their greenhouse gas emissions. But the message was loud and clear that we will spend 15% of our own resources to achieve that target, but we look towards external world, obviously the developed world and all those funds which have been created to help the developing countries for the rest 35%. So that's like, but then they also committed a couple of other things towards that target. And the two things which were, maybe important, that 30% of the vehicles will be electric vehicles by 2030, and the second one was 60% of the energy will be from renewables. And then they converted, the hydropower into renewable. So I think that's the kind of confident that that's the target which should be kind of achieve the 60% of the renewables. Now there were other targets for the first time talking about nature-based solutions. And the nature-based solutions, they mentioned three, I think at least I remember the three things. And those were the three things which were obviously very close to the previous government as well. One was the 10 million tree tsunami, then there was Recharge Pakistan, and then there was Protected Areas Initiative. So, obviously, those were launched. One problem, and then I'll come to NAP also, one problem in a country like Pakistan is inconsistent, approach towards our policies. A lot of times the priorities change when the governments change. There's an impression that, okay, this particular project was launched by or conceived by the previous government, so let's not, let's come up with something new. So I think let's keep that in mind. This is like something which is a global commitment, we have already shared, and this is a collective responsibility. If we ask the world that it's a collective responsibility and help us, I think within our own framework, it's also important that we realize that, and all the departments. And same goes, now look at the NAP. I mean, NAP is a good document. I told you that it took some time, and particularly after 22 floods, when at Sharm el-Sheikh, we were all talking about what happened in Pakistan will not remain in Pakistan. People asked, okay, what is your plan? And that document didn't exist. So, a very rigorous effort. I think credit goes to the Ministry of Climate Change that they made a lot of efforts in this document. The document was prepared, it's a good document. But, the real work starts now. The real work is, I think my fellow panelists also mentioned, which is, to me, as a practitioner, is the most important. And that work is translating this document at the local level. Building the capacity of the small government entities at the local level. If we really want to make them more resilient, if we really want to protect them, the things which are required at Chitral, up in the North Mountains, is totally different from KT Bandar in the south in the Delta. The challenges, the external environment, climate crisis, everything is different. So, I think to operationalize, the first thing is vulnerability mapping. Let's do that mapping. Let's identify the areas, the geographies which are most vulnerable. Those geographies should automatically become our top priorities. And whenever we translate this into an investment plan, because a huge amount of money which is required, to operationalize, where is the money? And if we have a small chunk of money, where should we spend money? And those decisions should not be based on political preferences or some other preferences. Those decisions have to be, based on science. And the science is when you do this mapping and then you identify those areas, because these are the frontline, communities. So that's number one. And secondly, also making efforts to ensure, I think Bilal also mentioned about the capacity building. I mean, this is like part of every project. Even our project, the Recharge Pakistan, which is one of the big project under the Living in This initiative launched yesterday, has a component of capacity building. But we need to build the capacity. Again, we need to prioritize that. So the departments which do the early warning, which help the communities in evacuation, but even going beyond that. And that's where I feel when you have to operationalize this document, it's not the federal ministry. This document at the local level, but we feel that we have the federal ministry and that can take care of everything related to climate change. No sir, absolutely not. We should have a climate change cell in irrigation department, in food department, in agriculture department, in livestock, literally every department, because that's where the real work is going to happen, not at the federal level. Let's keep that in mind. It's a provincial subject. Everything will be done at the province's level and everything needs to be done at the local level. So I think let's keep that spirit in mind if you really want to tell the world that we mean business, we are very serious and this is our plan and these are the steps that we are doing. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Hamad. Just a question here. Do we really have that common understanding as of today? Whatever you mentioned, or we've covered some part of it, at least.
You want an honest answer or you want a politically correct answer?
I think
So
it's
you
time
like
that we
me
go for an
or-
honest answer. We are right in between the entire system. It's not the start, it's not the end. We have to take it by forward.
So I think the ownership at the provincial level, the pure understanding. Now, talk to the chief conservator wildlife or the chief engineer irrigation. I'm pretty sure they haven't heard about this document. I'm pretty sure because I work with all these departments. And then there was a writ petition which was filed in the Lahore High Court. They said, we have climate change policy and we have implementation framework and we have these documents and that document. What is the implementation status? And then suddenly the provincial governments, because the Superior Court asked them to report back, they started working. Where do we stand? Okay, we did that, we're doing this, we want to do that. So that's where kind of a stopgap thing. Honestly, a lot has been done, but considering the fact, when we tell everybody we are one of the most affected, a lot needs to be done. Let's keep that in mind and then strategize, our policies and our actions.
Thank you for that. Ashir, you want to comment? You want to say something? Please go ahead.
Yes, just what Hamad was saying about the role of provinces and at the provincial and local level. I think that I just want to update the audiences that the climate risk and vulnerability assessment has been going on, for the whole of Pakistan, and then it will be also focusing on the provinces and districts, particularly those which are vulnerable. The other thing, the good news is that most of the provincial government, particularly in the planning and development department, they have established a climate cell, like in KP or Punjab, except Balochistan, and we are in discussion with Balochistan to establish that, and then of course it will be replicated or to the land departments and as well as at the district level. So these are, but the main thing is, the challenge is how we are going to implement, because just establishing the climate change cell is not enough. We have to do more on the ground, and that's what we are going to do through the development of the district adaptation plans, where we would really know the needs of the communities or of the other stakeholders, and then come up with the action plan along with the resources required to address those things. So that's what I would like to add, that things are progressing in a positive way so far.
I'm sure they are. Thank you so much for that, Ashir. Romy, I'd like to move towards you. You've heard the perspective, you've heard where we stand, where the document was last year, what is the status today. So how do you compare us with the region, and what immediate steps or strategy actions need to be taken for us to move a little faster in the implementation of the system?
That's quite a big question. Well, I think, first of all, I think Pakistan is with the huge population, challenges and the diversity that you're having, is certainly outstanding in the region, especially also when it comes to the partnership members, for instance. It's one of the biggest countries that we're having. So your issues are complex, and I think this is using your federal system and your decentralized system is extremely important. So capacitate the regions and the provinces and the communities, to make sure that they are understanding understanding the sustainability aspect, making sure that there is an effort, there is a benefit from investing into climate a little bit more than what the quick fix would be. Is extremely important. I think this is the stuff that you need to transmit from the federal. What we also see, this is obviously a overall governance challenge. The leadership from the very, very top in the country is extremely important in order to make sure that this things are trickling down. You are freeing basically the finances, the national finances, the international finances, in order to make sure that you overcome also the resistance probably towards this kind of activities. My own country, I don't know whether you Germany, we are now in a situation where we have a budget really flying. We've got a budget block, and the first thing that our finance minister is telling us is, oh, you need to reduce on not only your international commitments, but also on climate, because we're already doing a lot. And we need to strengthen our economy and we need to make sure that our people that are frustrated about the government, unemployment, the way how it works, are with us and are hearing us and they're following us. And this is the biggest real challenge. And for that you need to feel the positive impact on the ground. And I think that's a very, very important aspect of it. We see countries where this works quite well, I think are often the smaller countries, of course, are often the countries where you can have more like an immediate impact. Countries like Pakistan, Egypt, Germany, you have really a challenge because you're so complex and you need to make sure that, number one, the money is reaching the people in a way, it makes sense, and people feel what is in for them, and they make the right decisions. I think that's the most important part. Very, very abstract. I think that when you look again, what we are challenged in Germany right now is that we are challenged by a government that is not aligned, by a government that has social aspects there, liberal business, pro-business aspects, and green aspects. And the challenge is really to make sure that these things are aligned and that the people are treated in a way or are taken with the government in a way that it makes sense to make a difference and for the people to feel they are taken serious. And that's I think a very important part. That must come from the very top.
Thank you, Rohit, for that. Bilal, I think NDRMF has a very important role to play in the entire implementation of these, and since we work with the vulnerable communities as well, contribute towards the climate action in a responsive manner as well. And then obviously all of these also contribute to achieving the SDGs for that. So what steps immediate in the next 2 to 3, 5 years is NDRMF going to be taking in order to support the entire country for linking these and implementation of NAP?
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, we were of course extremely pleased when we saw the first drafts of the NAP and we tried to provide some inputs and we tried to make it not only fine and implementable, and many of them were taken into consideration, but I think it's a consensus document, so we have to take it forward. Now, NDRMF is very uniquely positioned and placed. Being a fund, we would have liked that there was a financing mechanism already annexed to the document itself, but nevertheless, I think this is one job, this is one kind of a task and assignment which NDRMF, as part of its obligation to assisting and working closely with the Ministry of Climate Change and the provinces and all the other stakeholders we talked about, for example, the communities. For them actually we can make it quite easy. Within the broader framework of the NAP and all the sectors which are identified there, there's a lot of details which is missing. Yes, the action areas are identified, but then we all know that from our experiences, from very different experiences, you, me, Hamad, everyone else from Pakistan and other places, we know that the devil is of course in the details, and when it really comes, it becomes a very kind of a cumbersome science when we take any policy document and we try to unpack it and then pack it again into some very tangible and viable and implementable interventions. I think that's a huge task of itself. and which NDRMF actually can actually help and assist whoever wants to do it, and will be of course volunteer offering our services. Why we want to do that? Because we actually see that our role starting beyond that, after that. Once the financing framework is there, once the projects are identified, once the projects are actually converted into whatever proposals, pins, and you name it, and that's where we actually want to take them, and we actually want to reach out to the different donors as well as the financing institutions, and convert and create some innovative financing instruments based on, of course, the details and the peculiarities of the projects itself. Being a fund, of course, we want to limit and restrict our role just to provide the financing and bring the financing. At the same time, being a force-moving organization, we want to bring the private sector in, and then within that context, we want to create some innovative financing instruments, and then try them out for adaptation purposes. So our role actually starts once we have done some of the preparatory work, and then subsequently we can take it forward. Now, uniquely positioned because we are a federal fund, government fund. Not one of the, is the largest federal government fund right now in terms of climate action, particularly the adaptation, although we are very active on the mitigation side as well. But at the same time, the kind of collaboration, partnerships, and the relationships we've been enjoying, and we have built that kind of distribution of capital with the provinces, because the provinces and the regions, of course, they are the implementing partners, they have to implement those projects. And we have that outreach, we have our footprint, we have the successful stories in terms of the project we have undertaken, we have completed in all those very remote areas. And there's loop going on your screen, your right hand side, and you can see that some of the names in there are really remote, and I even personally don't know many of those names myself as well. That's how remote they are. So I think that's where the adaptation is going to be happening. That's the adaptation is going to be happening in Dadu, in Tilasapula, in Chagi, and you name it. And we have the footprints there, we have the collaboration, we have successfully implemented those projects with the help and assistance of many of our partners, and several of them are actually are in that group. I'm here, and many others are here who have actually helped us. So NDRMF is very uniquely placed because we have that arm which is extracted from our donors and the financial institutions. We have that kind of experimental spirit within us, which can allow us, and we can convert many of the financial needs in the shape of new and innovative financial instruments. Then we are very much on the ground through the outreach and the stretch of our fund implementing partners. So that's how uniquely we are positioned. And I think for 10 years down the road, if Ahmad or anyone else, like Ahmad is sitting in one of the platforms saying that yes, NAPIS was not implemented, and I think we can actually hold NDRMF partly responsible for that. We were not able to do a job properly.
Thank you so much for that. I personally feel after this discussion on the panel, when I started this conversation, and now my confidence level has gone up, honestly. And the debate we are having is the effective governance. I think we have the right things in place, the right institutions in place, the policy document in place, the framework is in place. And having heard the regional and international perspective as well, I think we are on the right track. We might be a little slower, and we might have started a little late, but it's never too late to catch up with the pace of the world for that matter. I thank you all for being here and excellent panelists. I think you can keep sitting here while I request the Honorable Secretary, Ministry of Planning, Development and Special Initiatives, Mr. Abbas Manzoor Sumarasa, to please come and share with us his remarks, especially from planning and finance point of view, since he's been earlier with the Finance Pavilion and now our line Ministry of Planning, Development and Special. So,
thank you to all the distinguished panelists for this very insightful discussion on the linkages and the governance mechanism between the on the aspects of the National Adaptation Plan, Pakistan being one of the very few countries which has actually developed a National Adaptation Plan and got it approved from the cabinet. And at the same time, the NDCs commitments by the government of Pakistan are also very ambitious and they are very important. So this discussion about creating linkages between the two is very important. And on behalf of the Ministry of Planning, I think we are in a support role. I know NDRMF is doing a very good work, and obviously Ministry of Climate Change is in the lead. Ministry of Planning will be supporting both Ministry of Climate Change and NDRMF as they take these issues forward. As far as the Ministry of Planning is concerned, I would like to say just 2 or 3 points very quickly as to what is the role of Ministry of Planning in all this. It was mentioned here that we need to decarbonize. It was mentioned by the Secretary Climate Change actually that we need to decarbonize and we need to grow at the same time. So I think that is very critical. And as you may have seen, the national accounts which were announced last week only, Pakistan is again back on the growth path. And in the first quarter of this financial year, Pakistan economy has grown by 2.13%. And we are actually expecting a much higher growth as we go forward and recover from the COVID times and all the financial challenges. So in that growth period, it is very critical for Ministry of Planning to actually plan for the future and to assist all industries and entities which are working in the climate change arena. Secondly, the Ministry of Planning is responsible for all the public investments in the country. Are the administrators of the PSPP, the Public Sector Development Program. But to meet the challenges of climate change and especially meeting the adaptation challenges, it was mentioned that we need about $48 billion up to 2030. So that amount of money is not going to come from the public sector money. So we need to tap all the private sector financing that is available and all the financing which can come from the ISIs as well. The Ministry of Planning is now currently in the process of developing the 13th five-year plan. It was also mentioned in one of the participants here that our priorities keep on changing. And unfortunately, we used to have 5-year plans, but in the last 10 years or so, we developed plans, but we never actually got those approved and implemented them. So now we are developing the 13th five-year plan, and we hope to complete that task by the end of this month and take that draft plan to the National Economic Council sometime in January and get it approved. That plan will be the blueprint for all sectors of the economy, including climate change, from 2024 to 2028. And we will be getting information and inputs from all the stakeholders as far as climate change is concerned, from all the provincial governments and from the Ministry of Climate Change to actually see and put in place a more holistic plan for climate change. So these are some of the areas where the Ministry of Planning is working, but again our full support to the Ministry of Climate Change, which is the lead ministry in this area, and the good work which has been done by the NDRMF. So my recommendations for both the entities, and thank you to all the participants for the insightful discussion on the topic. Thank you very much.
May I request all panelists for a group photo and also request Secretary Climate Change, Mr. Asif Saab, to join us. I think we can all stand. Please. We can all stand together, please.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Planning and climate change in one panel opening.